Hi there, this is David and welcome to the top 10 Nintendo 3DS RPGs. Coming hot off of the heels of the hugely successful DS comes Nintendo's last dedicated portable system. Mobile gaming probably killed off portables, but the streak that started on the Game Boy was good while it lasted. There are tons of ports and remakes on this system, and I will not be covering them here. I want this list to be nothing but new and exclusive 3DS RPGs. In that vein, I'll also be whittling the list down so that only one entry of each franchise will be on it. So, let's get this party started. Number 10, Return to Popa Lacroix, A Story of Seasons Fairy Tale. Popa Lacroix was one of my favorite games for the PSP. I just loved everything about it, and I still can't believe that this series isn't more popular both in the East and the West. I hoped that this would change when this was announced, but unfortunately it still seemed to fly under the radar, which is quite the shame because the game is great. It stars the familiar cast of Popa Lacroix characters who are whisked away to another world where the soil is barren and it's up to Pietro and friends to revive the world tree. By this description, you may think that it's more of a Harvest Moon type game, but that's not the case. The farming plays second fiddle to the traditional RPG aspects. So much so that if you wanted to, you could pretty much ignore farming in its entirety. However, you would miss out on many side quests, crafting systems, and upgrades. There's also a dating mechanic, which is odd because Pietro only has eyes for Narcia. That being the case, you really don't actually date, you just kind of befriend the ladies. But again, this could be completely ignored to instead focus on the charming world and storybook-like narrative. Number 9, Stella Glow. Did you like the Luminous Arc series on the DS? Did it leave you wanting more tactical goodness? Well then, look no further than Stella Glow. I mean, it might as well be Luminous Arc 4. For the uninitiated, this is a strategy RPG in the same vein as Final Fantasy Tactics and Fire Emblem, minus the permadeath. That's not to say that it will be easy though. Battles definitely require strategy, and it's imperative that you make the most of the bonding system to use your units in concert with one another. When you're not battling, you have the chance to spend time with your party members to improve the relationship, similar to the new Fire Emblem games or the Trails series. Music plays a titular role here as well. Songs are performed in the game with Japanese voice acting, and by bonding with witches, you can learn powerful song magic to aid you in battle. It's a loss to the JRPG community that Image Epoch filed bankruptcy after this. They had so many unique classic titles, but at least they really did go out with a bang. Number 8, Fantasy Life. I like Animal Crossing as much as the next guy, but to me that's not really an RPG, it's more of a life simulation. Fantasy Life takes everything that made Animal Crossing great and sprinkles in some combat, leveling, and class systems for good measure. There are 12 jobs, or lives, that you can choose from, and you're able to switch your life at any time. You could be anything from an archer to a blacksmith to a humble fisherman. This sets it apart from its peers. It's not like you're a farmer the entire time. Interestingly, when you switch lives, skills that you received in previous classes will carry over. So for example, having a fighting type job will help you when you become a woodcutter because the most valuable and elusive trees are hidden deep in forests occupied by monsters. Sadly, like many 3DS games that utilize Street Pass, most players have moved on, but man, what a rush this was to play when it was in its heyday. Number 7, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon. Another Nintendo portable, another generation of Pokemon, and this time Nintendo really milked it by releasing X and Y, remakes of Ruby and Sapphire, Sun and Moon, and their Ultra remakes. It's hard to keep up. The game takes place in an entirely new Aloha region based of course on the Hawaiian Islands. And similar to the other games in the series, you must traverse the 4 islands, collect powerful Pokemon, and defeat the Gym Masters. Ultra has some new upgrades sprinkled throughout the adventure, routes and trainers are moved around here and there, but the real changes happen mostly at the end, with new Ultra Beasts, Ultra Wormholes leading to legendary Pokemon, and a more fleshed out post-game story. However, I will say this, if you've already played the vanilla games, I wouldn't splurge for the remake, but if you haven't, this version is where it's at. Number 6, Yokai Watch 3. Level 5 is easily one of my favorite game designers. I was introduced to them through Dark Cloud, but they really won me over with the beautiful worlds, cel-shaded artwork, and well-crafted gameplay in hits like Dragon Quest VIII, Joan of Arc, and Ni no Kuni. It seems that everything they touch turns to gold, and Yokai Watch is no exception. Of the 3 installments on the 3DS, the third is easily the best one, and worry not, you don't have to play the previous 2 to understand what's going on, though there are some nods to the previous games. Here, you take on the role of Nathan Adams, who just moved to the southern United States, and he possesses a magical watch which allows him to befriend yokai to fight on his behalf in real-time battles. Looking at this, you really can't help but compare it to Pokemon, and personally, I found the story and characterization to be much more fleshed out compared to a typical Pokemon game, and I also like the art style more. Pokemon really better watch out because this franchise is nipping at its heels. Number 5, Mario & Luigi Dream Team. Here we have the 4th game in the Mario & Luigi series, and it's just as good, if not better, than its predecessors. I don't know how they can keep up the quality so well in this franchise while dropping the ball in some other Mario RPGs. But anyway, here we're not time traveling or swallowed by Bowser, instead, Luigi's just asleep for 99% of the game. But that's the gimmick and the fun of the game, because it's split into a 3D real world and a 2D dream world. The dream worlds are inspired by the look and feel of the real world, changing it up just a bit, but keeping the spirit the same. In order to progress, Mario has to dive into dream portals and have dreamy Luigi manipulate his dreams by bouncing Mario higher, sneezing and changing things up, or otherwise terraforming the landscape. This is a quality entry to the series, and if you're a fan, you should definitely pick it up. Number 4, Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. It took quite a bit of time for this franchise to take off in the West, originally appearing in Japan on the SNES, but not getting an official localization in the West until the PlayStation era, but then still kind of languishing until the PS2 and Nocturne took off. But now it seems that the series is finally coming to its own on the 3DS. There are a ton of games on this system, many of them fantastic, but for the sake of variety, I'm only going to be looking at what I believe to be the best one here. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse is a direct sequel to the 4th game following the neutral ending, and as such, it spoils that game for you in the first 5 minutes. Thankfully though, you do control an entirely new protagonist this time, so it's not that big of a deal if you forgot what happened in the first game. The press battle system is back where you gain extra turns by hitting enemy weaknesses, and as always, there's a fair challenge to be had as you explore the destroyed Tokyo in a fully voiced world filled with angels and demons. Number 3, Bravely Second End Layer. I'm a big fan of the NES and SNES era Final Fantasies, but once the 3D era hit, they did begin to toy with the system just a bit too much for my liking. Bravely Default is a return to the classic wonder years of the 90s. Considering that Final Fantasy V is one of my favorites, it should come as no surprise that I'm a big fan of job systems, which this game has in spades. As a direct sequel to the first game taking place only 20 years after the original, the designers figured that you did play the first game already, so it's imperative that you do so in order to understand what's going on. Many of you will be happy to know that the pacing problems that plagued the first game are gone here, and the backgrounds of our 4 heroes are explored much more in depth this time around. It could be said that this is just more of the same, and while some might think that that's a bad thing, I don't. I loved the original, and Bravely Second shores up the shortcomings of the first and just cleans it up a bit. So if you're a fan of those classic 90s RPGs, pick this gem up. Number 2, Fire Emblem Awakening. Before we start, I just want to make it perfectly clear that I hate permadeath. That being said though, I have played all the previous Fire Emblem games, though mostly through emulation because it's just an effort and frustration when you have to reload your save when somebody dies. I'd much rather play with save states. It only took about 30 years, but Nintendo finally realized this and introduced casual mode. Yes, I'm filthy, I proudly claim it, but I don't care. I can finally enjoy a Fire Emblem game without stressing out the entire time. The same basic rock, paper, scissors combat is here, along with the meticulous map design and chess-like combat that the series is so well known for. but what really makes it stand apart from its peers is the marriage system. Battling together will allow units to increase their relationship status until the point that they can eventually get married. Unfortunately though, there is no same-sex marriage, they can just become good friends. That really kind of bothers me, but I can overlook it in a game this good. And number 1, The Alliance Alive. Remember the first time that you switched on the SNES and started up Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy VI, or Chrono Trigger? The way the music and the introduction made you feel? You just knew that you were in for a treat. Lately, it's been hard for me to find games that evoke that same feeling, but I'm here to tell you that The Alliance Alive has that spark, that magic. It grabbed my attention right from the get-go and it did not let go. It's traditional to a fault, with a gorgeous world map utilizing overworld abilities, and it's strewn with hidden items. There's dungeons with puzzles and a turn-based saga-esque battle system complete with sparking abilities. The game takes place in somewhat of a prison world where humans are captured and subjugated by demons, and the only way to escape and break the stranglehold is to band together and try and break free. This one is special and not to be missed, and also, I'm sure that you'll be glad to know that the game is also getting an HD PS4 port pretty soon too. Well, that's it for the top 10, but I do have a few honorable mentions as well. The Legend of Legacy, and 7th Dragon Code VFD. What are your favorite 3DS RPGs? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and have a good day.